I'm so glad to see everybody out here tonight. Some of us are strangers to one another. I think when we leave here tonight, we consider ourselves family. We're more concerned about what's going on in this community. And we ask for God's direction as to where we should be going to help one another. If you would, bow your heads for a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, just once again, we come humbly saying thank you for this day, Lord. You blessed us. You kept us from all hurt, harm, and danger. But now, Lord, we're about to do your business. We're about to come together as a family, Lord, and discuss and work out a situation where we can all benefit from living in this community. So, Lord, we ask it again to direct us and guide us, Lord. And Lord, let us humble ourselves, be mindful to listen to what you have to say to us, Lord. Again, Lord, we ask those that are here, bless us. Those that are on the radio, bless them. We ask, Lord, when this meeting is over, that we all leave here smiling, laughing at one another, saying, Lord, we just thank you for this community. Again, Lord, bless us, keep us, and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up. This is an opportunity that we have to address some specific needs, and this is a situation where we are, as a family, here in this auditorium, this historic community. And that the main purpose of the entire meeting for tonight and the ongoing process of this is to continue to do the things we need to preserve, protect, and promote the community of Gum Springs. We have a team of individuals that will be doing a heritage resource study for the community of Gum Springs. And from that, we'll be more aware of situations and things that we may have qualified for in terms of the way of preserving this historic community. We have on the panel like people that will go over these things, and we want to be able to ask questions. This is the first of many meetings that we will be having. These things will go on. If we don't get all the questions answered tonight, and Mr. Moon is going to go over some of these things to the shore shortly to explain where you see the tabs on your table. So once you get the questions, you can write down your questions as you go, and then we'll be calling on you. And we want to make sure that we do this in an orderly fashion. This is our home. The people here today, this is our guests, and they should be treated that way. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity, whereas they get a chance to ask their questions. No question is a bad question. And like I said before, this is the first of many meetings that we'll have. And so at this time, I want to introduce our Mount Vernon District Supervisor. Thank you, Vincent. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's particularly a pleasure to be on this journey. And just as we're starting to talk here, the light's shining through. We know that it is really, truly a new day or a new opportunity for sure for the Gum Springs community to bring together a lot of different pieces of this history, culture,
how we got here almost 200 years ago in the founding of the community. My role in this is truly to represent all of you, and that particularly focused on not only the 35 years I've lived in my community and my kids went to school with the kids in the Gum Springs community. I've had lots of different layers to that, personal, but the professional role I have here is to make sure that we preserve, protect, and have a future that the Gum Springs community wants for their community. That's it. That's the core for me is what is that you all of us working together can help put that together, decide, define, and ultimately protect that. So many years ago, I got very involved with doing that and got the Board of Supervisors to support some funding to help really bring this about. I know this process, this effort is decades in the making. There are a lot of folks I'm looking around, seeing the community who are key parts of helping to make this happen. I'm happy to have a small part in making this happen. I look forward to working with you. Most importantly, listening to you, listening about what it was, what it is, and what it should be, the community of Gum Springs. And last thing I want to do is introduce an individual in my office who's going to be working with you all. Peyton Smith. Peyton, if you could stand up for just a second. Peyton has been working in my office for 2 or 3 years now, mostly working on park authority and transportation issues. Nick Reinhardt in my office, who's been working on the Gum Springs issues, is getting ready to move out of the area. So Peyton is going to be the key liaison for my office, along with really so many other people. But I'm here, my door's always open, and we're here to listen, learn, and most importantly, about a year from now, help work and put together a plan that will truly conserve and protect and ensure that we have a Gum Springs a decade or two, century or two into the future. So we're getting ready to celebrate the semi-quincentennial, which is the 250th anniversary of this country. This is a great time to make sure that we've also protected those things that are very important to us, like this community. Looking forward to your being part of this process. So again, my deep thanks and appreciation for being here tonight.
Okay, so again, I want to say that you'll see people walking around. A lot of us will have our name tags or badges because we represent several different groups here. That's beside the county, we're talking about representatives from the Gum Springs Civic Association. We've got my cousin here, Mr. Don Chase, and the Gum Springs Historic Society. We have members of the leadership team, the community leadership team that's been helping working on this project as well. That's Dan Moon, Ron Chase, and Mr. Cameron King. The next person we're going to introduce is a young lady that came into this at this time period, and then she is the Chief Executive Officer for the County of Fairfax out of the office of the county exec. We have her open here, and she will be here to explain to us and talk to us about the progress that we've made so far on the conservation plan for Gum Springs. The conservation plan is the key to it all. We want to make sure that the studies and all those things be well done, and they will have their things that they will address. But the plan itself is nice, but the implementation of the plan is what is the key to it all. So we want to be able to fully develop a newer plan and make sure that we have the procedures and things in place that these plans are not just sitting on the curve, they're being implemented. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Collins.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for the invitation to be a part of this really important step in, as what you've heard already this evening, a commitment on the part of the community and the county to ensure the ongoing preservation of the history of the Gum Springs community. But as Mr. Carter said, you know, this study is a critical element of that, but ultimately this is about the ongoing preservation and vitality of the Gum Springs community. And in order to do that, we need to have a plan, to have a positive relationship between this community and the county, to have positive relationships within the community, and to really be really united with a common goal of the ongoing success in the future for the Gum Springs community. So some of you who have been residents in the community for a while may be familiar that in the early 80s, the county, in partnership with the community, established what was called a conservation plan. And that conservation plan covered a lot of different elements. It covered actually ensuring that the community is conserved, but it included economic elements, it included housing elements, it included sort of other development elements. And much of what we see today that is the Gum Springs community resulted from the partnership between the county and the community to ensure that the conditions in Gum Springs were addressed after years of advocacy from the community, and that there were strategies and plans in place for us to continue to work on it. Over a number of years, the items within that plan were addressed, and eventually it expired. And one thing we've heard loud and clear from this community is that there is a need for a plan that the county in terms of Gum Springs. And so Mr. Carter is correct. The study that is being initiated around the heritage of the community is one part of it, but we are also committed to visioning and goal setting with the entire community that would lead to specific strategies moving into the future. One, to reflect what Gum Springs wants for itself for the future. The other is to really establish that commitment to continue to work together. Again, community and the county, and hopefully, as Supervisor Stork said, this is the Gum Springs of people who have been here historically. This is the Gum Springs of today, but this is also recognizing that there are people who will make up the Gum Springs of the future, and we really want to make sure that this community remains vibrant, not just for those of us who are here today, but into the future. So we're fully committed to putting a plan in place, working with the community, and hope to hopefully in the fall, launch what we consider to be a goal-setting, envisioning process that will lead to a development of a plan, and will work in conjunction with the heritage resource history and acknowledge the history of the community, but also to give us strategies and goals to work toward for the future. So in my role as Mr. Carter called me the Chief Executive Officer, and I think my boss would not be too happy with that, as the county executive, but as a chief equity officer, one of the things that I have said in order for Fairfax County to really realize our vision, Fairfax, a racially and socially equitable Fairfax County, and we have to plan intentionally for our future. So I think that the work that we're planning to do alongside the Gum Springs community is important for Gum Springs, but it's important for so many other communities in Fairfax County, and really marks sort of how we can work with communities to ensure that we become one Fairfax. So thank you for the invitation to be here, and I'm really excited for our ongoing partnership. Thank you.
At this time, Dan Moon is going to come up and give us some housekeeping information in terms of telling you the items that are at the table and how this thing is going to progress. Also,
We can get someone else to sign.
and you'll be addressing the members of the advisory team, the county staff, and the group that will be doing the presentation coming up. So at this time,
good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Moon. I'm on the leadership team for this project. I'm also the parliamentarian for the New Gum Springs Civic Association. Basically, what I'm going to tell you now is you're going to hear more about this project in a few minutes. But at your table, everybody should have a sticky pad and a pen. What that is for, there's going to be a question and answer portion tonight. And at the end of the question, if your questions are not answered during the meeting, we're going to try to collect all the questions because we want to know what they are. And I don't think everybody's question is going to be able to get answered tonight, but we're going to collect all the sticky pads, all your questions at the end of the question and answer period. Thank you.
what we do. So at this time, we have the pleasure of introducing to you, most of you all already know this young man, who is one of the hardest workers in the community, has just worked himself to the bone in preserving and developing the history and things of that nature for this community. Mr. Ron Chase of the Gum Springs Civic Association, and the Gum Springs Museum. He's the founder and director. Okay.
Well, I'd like to say good evening to everyone. And I would like to make note that on your table, you have a timeline of Gum Springs history, as well as you should have some type of link, if you will, to Gum Springs history. So what I'm going to do today, I'm not going to go through that process of trying to squeeze all of that information into the little bit of time that I have here right now. But I'm really going to try and give you the points of interest and why Gum Springs is so important and why we must, at the end of the day, when all of this is over, we find Gum Springs a historic overlay district. Because what we have here, what we purview, and how we're sitting here today is truly history and the elements of the African-American diaspora. And what were the things that enabled African Americans to thrive and move forward to a brighter day? Gum Springs is truly a phenomenal place when you sit down and you look at the building blocks, these elements that enable African Americans to come here, build a family, build a home, build a church, build organizations. Now, Gum Springs in the 1700s was owned by William and Humphrey Peake. They're buried right out here in the back. And West Ford purchased it in 1833. Now, I don't know if many of you are aware of the fact that the not the Washingtonian, but the New Yorker magazine did an article on Gum Springs about a year ago. It was on Gum Springs and West Ford. And the article was full of misinformation. It was as if they purposely tried to undermine, purposely tried to diminish the power of this community. I think it started the article by saying, did George Washington have an enslaved son? Okay, fine, that's part of the controversy. And then it goes further to say, West Forward starts the freedman community of Gum Springs. Supervisor Stewart, what's wrong with that statement? I'm gonna put you on the spot. What is wrong with that statement? Very good.
Pretty normal.
How a Black man in 1833 purchased this land in Fairfax County. Fairfax County couldn't leave the Union fast enough. And a Black man in Fairfax County started this community. So the writer, the author, was cutting the legs out from under West Forward in regards to what he did. Calling this community a freedman's community. It was not. Freedmen's communities were started by the federal government to give a helping hand to people coming out of slavery. And they were short-lived elements. So here you have West Forward purchasing Gum Springs. It starts to grow. You have organizations like the Joint Stock Club that was started by Samuel K. Taylor, the first minister of Bethlehem, and his deacons. And they went into their pockets and pulled out their pennies. Go out and buy property.
Oh, to see the people. Okay, I get you now.
To resell at cost to other Blacks to help build this community. The building blocks, the structure of this community is phenomenal. So you have the community growing, you have the churches, the schools. Gum Springs had a school in 1850.
So you see, like,
1850. They burned it down.
Yeah, you can turn off the video now and try the laptop.
Then Bethlehem Baptist Church became church and school. And then the community built another school right on Richmond Highway. It's right there where the Apostolic Church is today. And by 1870, the county owned it. They called it the Freedmen's School. And then Booker T. Washington built a school right here on Fordson Road. Booker T. Washington was building schools for Blacks in the South. And we had one right here on Fordson Road. Now, unfortunately, a gentleman by the name of Rosenwald thought it was an excellent idea and he wanted to get involved with it. So he started giving assistance to it and they became known as Rosenwald schools. Booker T's name fell by the wayside. Now, I think that happened because Rosenwald, well, he was white, and plus he had money. He was one of the owners of Sears and Roebuck. So these phenomenal things that was existing in Gum Springs is the reasons why we're demanding the historic overlay for this community. Because that historic overlay will protect and recognize all of these things that the African Americans that was in this community, what they did in order to survive. And these were phenomenal things. If we stop and think just for a moment, stop and think and give true consideration to the meaning of these things. So the community is thriving, is changing from a of farm community, and people are leaving the farms. It's growing. Community 1950, 60, people are coming to the community. More organizations are forming. Gum Springs had 4 fraternal organizations. Had one called the Friendlies, one called the Elks, one the Masons, and of course the Art Fellows. All here in Gum Springs. Now, we all know the charge of these organizations is to support their fellow man, and that's what they did. I'm not going to go into any lengthy stories because I'm going to try and get to this outline so we can continue with what we have to do today. But I guess I'm trying to just simply bring forth the importance of these things that we may have considered to be trivial or small, but yet it gave African Americans a means by which to have a start and then to reach out. So you have the community growing, you have Saunders Benny Moon coming to the community, who becomes the principal of this school. And he starts to insist to the community that we have a community action association. But unfortunately, he died suddenly one Christmas morning, 1963. But the community continued with his suggestion. You need an element that can fight for you. So the community continued with his dream and created the Saunders B. Moon Community Action Association. And within that construct, they went after this building, struck a deal with the county to have this building for 100 years for $1 a year. Did you know that? Hey, trying to school you. $1 a year. They got the building and they turned it into this community center. That's how this building became a community center. They also got Spring Garden Apartments built. They got those homes built on Napa Road. They got the park built, the pool. They got the Joseph Nickel Court built, the West Ford development. They were instrumental in having the regional library here, as well as Fairfax Hospital. Phenomenal things. It was if they reached into their pocket and said, listen, we're going to continue with what the Joint Stock Club did, with what the Masons, the Art Fellows, the Elks, and the Friendlies. A continuation, a continuum of giving and support of their fellow man. That is what this community is. And that is why these are the things that we honor. These are the things that we teach our children. These are the things that are important. To give our children a base in which to grow. So the organization did these things. However, there are problems going on with the county and the existence of the community. Did everyone? How many people knew that? That path came through Gum Springs. That path that is from Maine to Florida. It changes names from state to state. But it was Upper Forson Road and Silver Fall Lane. And I think it was what? I'm getting extremely dry. Is there any water here? In 1918, Tammy? 1908. Route 1.
Yes, but it existed long.
Right. So when they paved Route 1, that's why if those of you who were children here in the area, if you wondered why Forson Road and Richmond Highway, or Forson Road and Silver Fall Lane, had cement on it, that's why. They paved Richmond Highway. It was a mud path. And they paved Richmond Highway in the early 1900s. And when they did that, what I'm getting at, when they did that, they did not put the infrastructure when they created the road, actual road from Sherwood Hall, from Richmond, I'm sorry, the Fortune Road to Sherwood Hall Lane to replace that section up. The infrastructure was not put in, so all that water came to Gum Springs. Gum Springs started experiencing different problems in regards to the amenities that it should have from the county. And there have been a series of battles and fights for, maybe he's trying to tell me something. How much time do I have?
About 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna try and wrap this up. The conservation plan. What did you say to me, cousin Kenny King? You're one that I need to talk to. Conservation plan, the water problems. It's been a battle. And it's been a battle for the overlay district. But at the end of the day, in the force and source of this battle, we want to understand Gum Springs history. We want people to understand the importance of it and why this information must be disseminated, not only throughout Fairfax County, not only throughout Virginia, but throughout the world. This is a part of man's existence with man. And how then do we continue to move forward as a society, as a country? The things that we know that we must do to hold ourselves together, we know these things, and we must do them. I'm going to end with saying this. These little things that we may consider them little things in our fishbowl, we have to do these things that will ripple throughout the world if we actually want to make a change. Thank you.
Good. And I don't know if Laura or Denise, you could one of like you all to come up here to the we can do the leadership team, and then one of you all can introduce our guest that's going to make a presentation. Now, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, in terms of the leadership team, and I think I introduced you all to them earlier. And what happened now, we came up with the community team that was representing us here on this study was Supervisor Scott that had a meeting at his office, and that was about quite a few of us. And we said what we would do is we would meet as a community, and we would decide from that who would be the people that would be representing the community on this team. From that team was Ms. Scott, Dan Moon, Maddie Palmer, Ron Chase, Ms. Pam King. This has not been a walk in the park. This is something we've been working on for quite a while. You have to do a scope of work. We have to look at different contractors and come up with a decision of which ones would be best to serve this community and take care of the needs that present itself. And we work with that, with the heritage resources people in the county. And they're going to tell Mr. Miller, I'm like a butcher. Say it again. Okay.
The big list.
So, come on up and introduce our team.
Yeah, good evening. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy and thrilled that you all could make it out here this evening. And for those of us joining online on Zoom, welcome. Very excited to be working on this project. When Vincent said that it's been a long time in the process getting here, I've been working on this project for a year. So I am the senior heritage resource planner at Department of Planning and Development over at Fairfax County. And I work with Stephanie Newman, who's highlighted by the sun right now, and Denise Dressel, who is our bridge chief, who has been working on this project for easily 3 years since its inception. So as Vincent said, this has been a community-led effort where staff has been working to make sure that the I's and T's are crossed and dotted, as whatever the case happens to be, to make sure that we could get a consulting team on board to fit the needs of the community, to help y'all tell your story and get it documented correctly. So with that, I am going to introduce the principal at CPG, Paige Pollard, Commonwealth Preservation Group, and she will run down the line. So thank you. I'm the contact one, so you'll remember me. I am on the contact information. It's that crazy last name, that's this one, but Laura K is fine. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here and thanks for making time to come listen to us and meet our consulting team. Again, my name is Paige Pollard. I'm principal and founder of Commonwealth Preservation Group. Could you advance the slide? My picture is the first one on the left. This slide represents all of the people and all of the faces that you are likely to see in your community as we undertake this project with your community. My firm's role will be described in more detail later in the presentation, but my background is in preservation planning. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. I also have a degree in architecture and historic preservation. And our role is kind of to keep the team together, ensure that all of the voices are heard. We will be conducting a lot of the oral history interviews, and we will be conducting a lot of the community engagement. I'm going to pass this microphone down the line so that the other members of the team can each introduce themselves and their companies. Here.
I think I'm going to stand up. I've been sitting down for a while, but just want to say it's a privilege and honor to be part of this team and to be here with all of you. The Gum Springs history is an incredible history. And Mr. Chase just articulated to all of us, and I just learned a bunch. But I am a professor at American University. I am trained in urban sociology. I have studied the redevelopment of Harlem in New York City, Bronzeville on the south side of Chicago, and I've written a book about the Shaw U Street area in Washington, D.C. I also am a resident of Falls Church. There's the Tinner Hill area. I've been there for 10 years. I also lived in Alexandria for 8 years and was intimately involved with redevelopment in the Parker Gray area, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And I don't have the expertise in Gum Springs at all, but I do know the history is incredible. When we're talking about Harlem, we're talking about a time period that is after the fact of the history here. When we talk about the Shaw U Street area, Shaw U Street and the philosophy of the new Negro came from Howard University, Shaw U Street, up to Harlem. So I think the task, at least in part for me, is to help the team understand when I learn, and we all learn, this amazing history of this community, how does it compare to the other places in the United States that some people feel are the most historic Black areas in our country? So I just want to say it's a pleasure and honor to be with all of you, and I'm looking forward to learn as much of this rich history that I can. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Van Opstal, and I'm an architectural historian with RK&K. We're with offices throughout the East Coast, but I'm in our Fairfax office. My role in this project is to conduct the architectural survey of the neighborhood and to support the greater team in taking photos and otherwise documenting the physical features and buildings of the neighborhood, the physical presence of your community. So I'm excited and very grateful to support this effort and learn a lot more about all of you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to say thank you to the Gum Springs community and to the folks here at the Community Center for your hospitality and for all of you coming here to learn more about the project. My name is Ashley Spivey. I am the Executive Director of Kina Consulting, which is an anthropological consulting firm that's based in Virginia. I come from a background of indigenous communities. I'm a member of the Pamunkey Indian tribe. So I'm coming all the way from not too far from the Richmond area, from our reservation community in King William County. And while there are many differences, there's a lot of many intersections between what indigenous communities are facing and what the Gum Springs community is facing regarding the preservation and the conservation of your histories, your stories, your heritage, your traditions, right, your institutions. And so I'm honored to be able to be a part of this team to help support that portion of the work. I have a degree and a PhD in historic anthropology and archaeology. So I'll be using that education, but my firm, our advocacy or model is anthropology is advocacy. We look at anthropology from a service-based mentality in deference to the folks and the clients that we work with, the communities that we work with. And that is no different than what I'll be bringing to the table and working with CPG and accounting and with all of you. And just a little bit about what Kina will be bringing to the table as the anthropologists. I'll be handling the traditional cultural property side of the management plan, and I'll explain more what that entails as we get into the presentation. But again, just want to say thank you to all of you and to the team for being here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Hill. I'm also joining from Kina. I have a background in archaeology and heritage management, and I will be supporting the efforts on the TCP. I have a background in archaeology, and I'll be supporting Kina on the TCP plan for community needs.
I also want to thank Catherine, who's sitting down there at the end of the table, taking copious notes so that we make sure that we have heard and taken into account and truly processed all of the questions that we do work through tonight with this community. I am going to ask, is it possible to move to the next slide? I know you guys are troubleshooting a little bit of tech issues, but I want to make sure to give proper recognition to the folks who are going to be working on this project behind the scenes. These are the members of our team who are not likely to be present in the community, but who are supporting the work of each of us through either data analysis, research, content development as we work to build the management plan with you all and to formulate our recommendations. We also have a graphics professional on the project because we believe that any high quality project needs to present itself both in substance and content, as well as quality of graphic presentation. And so I want to make sure that we take a moment and just reflect on the folks who are behind the scenes really supporting all of the hard work that you all will help us do. Next slide. 1 second. Okay. So can I have a show of hands? How many folks in the room live in Gum Springs? Shouldn't assume anything. Okay. And how many folks in the room have lived here your whole life? How about more than 20 years? Okay, so we've got a lot of long-term knowledge about the development of this community. For the folks who don't live in Gum Springs, how many folks are here because they heard about the meeting through the news media? Anyone? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to tell me, what is your relationship to Gum Springs? Okay, so you live adjacent to the community and have an interest in what happens here. Yes, ma'am. Worship in Gum Springs. That's okay. How many people worship in Gum Springs but may not live here? Okay, I should not have skipped that question. Thank you for bringing that up. So it looks like we've got a robust set of knowledge. Yes, ma'am. The surrounding community, so adjacent and very interested in what's happening in the neighborhood. Okay, excellent. You went to school in this building. All right, well, we definitely want to talk to you more about the history of how it came to be the community center and what it was like as a school. Any other connections that we haven't addressed in one way or another? Yes, ma'am. You grew up and worked here in this building as well. All right, that's excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing. That was it's really good to kind of understand the audience that we're talking with tonight, and I can't wait to really learn more about your stories, your past, and your vision for this community. And so that really brings us to what is the project vision as we understand it, to make sure that we check ourselves and that we're interpreting our mandate or our scope of work appropriately. Our understanding is that we have been charged with the task of documenting the current physical attributes and characteristics and resources of the community. And then learning from you all what is important and what are the important elements of the story, and what are the important elements of the history and the physical environment, and understand by you all, the community. And then the third element of this vision is to establish a collective philosophy for heritage stewardship. My understanding is that there are a lot of different perspectives and visions within this community about the path forward. And our goal in our work is to help facilitate development of kind of a collective vision that everyone can get around. And we will take that vision and use that to guide development of recommendations for a management plan to achieve the vision. And so I want to stop for a minute and ask everyone to reflect on those three ideas and raise your hand if you think we're missing the boat. Are we missing something in this project, or is that generally your understanding? Yes, sir.
I mean, one building, there's one building on Fortune Road. I believe it's called the Arts Fellows and Art Center. Are we going to keep that building? Okay, one more question. Good for that. One more question. Over here on Sherwood Hall Lane, there used to be a school. That lot vacant. Are we going to keep that and inherit it? Because that was part of government also. I'm sure Mr. Chase knows exactly what I'm talking about. Vacant lot, right here on Sherwood Hall Lane, going east on the left side, right next to I believe it's an office.
Well, what I would like to offer is that I am here for the first time meeting you all in person after a very long process of getting to this point. And so I am not arriving, and I don't think anyone on our team is arriving with any foregone conclusion. But I think if those resources are important to you as a member of this community and are important links to the history of this community, I would ask you to write them down on those sticky notes. Before I leave, I'm going to take the white sheet and put all the sticky notes on them, and I'm going to take pictures of each sheet that's at the center of each table, and I will therefore have a record of every single sticky note and every single comment. And if you can tell us the building name and the cross streets so that we can keep that and begin recording that input, that would be helpful.
One more quick thing. I was here this starting in the 60s. They burnt that school down over Chicago. They burnt it down a lot. That's one of the things important to me. That's it. The moon center building is also.
Okay.
Not been into the 60s. I remember when they burnt down places. I was a little kid.
We're talking about the mood center and then a couple of buildings that were burnt down in the 1960s where there are vacant lots still that are important.
One lot.
One lot, okay. If you would write those down, just, I do not want to lose track of them over time. Thank you. So if we all can agree that this is our project vision, and this is kind of our stepping off point tonight. Next slide. I think it's important to then pause and talk about how we got here. We responded to a request for proposal that I have learned tonight was put together using a scope of work in consultation with members of this community, and it was issued by the county. We responded to that request for proposal in January of 2023 and really put together our team and put together our project design, and then entered what I thought was a very long, thoughtful, and intentional series of conversations back and forth with the county and via the local community leadership team as well. And through that, the proposed scope of work and the assignment that we were given was refined and refined and refined. Actually, that's when we invited Derek onto our team to give us yet another perspective and really help round out the skill set. So we finally got to a point of having an internal kickoff with the community leadership team in early spring, March and April, and we find ourselves here today. So this has been from January 2023 until today. We've been building up to this moment to actually be able to stand in front of you all, see your faces, hear your enthusiasm, and introduce ourselves and say that we want to be partners in this project. I think it's also important to think about what's going to happen in the future. How does this project unfold? Next slide. So where are we going? We're going to take the summer to do field work and research. So Laura and her team will be out in the field. She's going to talk to you all in a few minutes about what that means, what you should expect to see them doing, and what the outcomes of that work will be. We will also be doing behind the scenes research. And we like to do field work and research together because each informs the other. And so if we can do that work at the same time, we can end up with a better product on both sides of the equation. We will come back in the fall, in October, and do a second community meeting. And we will also take a series of oral history interviews. Those will be done to professional standards, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. We're then going to move into gathering information from community groups and really talking with smaller groups and individuals, and more community meetings, and then content development and revisions and input from the community until we get to a final document. And the goal is to complete the project in the summer or fall of 2025. Okay, next slide. So what are the steps that we take to get to the end product? The first step is documenting the resources, and I'm going to turn it over to Laura to talk to you all a little bit about how her team works and what you can anticipate in terms of their field work and also their deliverables.
So as I mentioned before, I'm an architectural historian trained in looking at buildings, researching buildings and their history, how they were built, the style they were built in, things like that. So for this effort, my role in this, thank you. My role in this is to be out in the community. Myself and another architectural historian with RK&K will be out. We will be in high visibility vests, a marked vehicle with RK&K on the side of it. You will see who we are. We will have cameras, maybe an iPad, a clipboard. We'll be taking photographs of every building, physical feature, the roads, anything else within the community, and taking notes about what the buildings are made of, when they were built, how they have changed over time. And all of that will be compiled into what's called a survey form. And these are they're a method of recording buildings and places as a snapshot in time. it becomes part of an archival record to see what does this community and what does this building look like at this moment in time. And so it includes a verbal written description of these buildings, the information we have from you, all of you sharing, and from our research about the properties, when they were built, how they've changed, all of those things that I already mentioned. And these are forms that are prepared to professional best practices and standards for the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. There are studies done throughout the entire state, and so these forms will be added to that record. There will be a form for every building in the neighborhood and the neighborhood as a whole, and it'll incorporate research that is done by the whole team and will be used in the larger management plan as well. Did I miss anything? Any questions specifically that I should touch base on what you could expect to see from us?
I think you need to mention that all of the documentation that's compiled will be the property that comes from.
Surely. So it will be the forms that I will be submitting as part of the effort will be going to the Virginia Department of Historic Resources and absolutely shared with the museum as well. Yes, their forms are part of the Department of Historic Resources database.
I'm going to be further questions.
Is there something in particular I can answer?
That the documentation will be going to say that some of it will be going to the Department of Historic Resources. So I need to know exactly what that is and why that is. Okay.
So the Virginia Department of Historic Resources maintains a state database and the survey record for any building that has been looked at by a professional architectural historian in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So when Laura's team does their field work, they will record information that is imported into that database and kept as a permanent record in the state archive as a snapshot in time. That can also be exported and duplicate copies provided to the museum as well. And frankly, anyone has access to looking at those records. But from the perspective of meeting professional standards, we have to use the database that the state has because that enables them to look at trends and to analyze whether a project unrelated to this, maybe not even done by the county, has the potential to impact historic resources. There are a lot of different ways that information can be used to inform decision-making sort of on a larger scale. But the survey data forms themselves are just that. It's data. It's not any kind of regulatory tool. It doesn't impose any restrictions. It's just a method of collecting data in a systematic way that then can be shared with others.
Okay, and I also want to the historic holdings will also include structures existing then and now in regards to the overall magnitude.
So we will talk about the historic overlay district itself in a few slides. And that's a little bit later in the portion where we're going to talk about how we build our recommendations. This survey effort is gathering the preliminary information we need to get to a point where we can share with you all what we found and talk about how we want to honor the history of this community based on what we found, both through interviews and kind of engagement and outreach, but also through data collection. So this survey will inform our recommendations, but it is not directly linked to a historic overlay district recommendation. It's like a piece of the puzzle that we put together. Yes, sir.
Just want to, on your side floor, one question more. As you go through your process, will you be reaching out to the property owners in order to make arrangements to come on our property, to do your study?
Yes, thank you for that question. We will be conducting the survey from the public right-of-way. I believe all of you living in the community received a mailing from the county that mentioned that the survey would be happening later this summer. We'll be doing it in late July and into August. And so, of course, if someone sees us outside, please come talk to us. We would love to talk to you. We will write down everything that you tell us about your building, your neighborhood, take down your contact information, things like that. So we will not enter your property unless invited to. But please come out if you see us and talk to us. That would be wonderful and helpful. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, hi, how you doing? Thank you, how's that?
Good, thank you.
Very good. How about the waterways and stuff, the natural stuff? All of the trees, I went out to, okay, thinking about doing an interactive walkway through the underground railroad and children and stuff. I get out there, take a walk around. You see, there used to be wonderful woods with 150-year-old trees with bloodless dead. It's gigantic buildings. It's being the waterways is how you preserving what was here. The greenery, everything that is the history, the natural history.
Yes.
I haven't heard one word about any natural history that's here. And not say nothing for there.
The purpose of my role in the project team is to document the physical features of the neighborhood, the things that we see today. That's just one part, that's architectural survey. We will also be documenting natural features. And so we will look at pathways, waterways, things like that are within the neighborhood as well. Yes. The research that the greater team will be doing on the history of the community will also take those kinds of features and history into effect.
I was just going to say that, as Laura mentioned, you know, she's documenting what exists today. There is a research component as well, which if we can advance the slide one, will come in the next couple of steps. So the second step that we take is really telling the story, working in the community to learn your story the way that you know it and tell it and want it shared. I'm sorry?
While we're racing it, I mean, once the building is up, you have the front,
so
the quickness of this development, you rush to develop this area so much that it seems to me you're racing, it's this bulldozer industry. And it's such a big thing.
So I think, you know, it's important to remember our role in this community is to help define the priorities for managing change and ensure that we really amplify those priorities clearly in this plan so that there are tools available to hopefully prevent changes to the community in the future that are out of alignment with the community's vision. That is what we have been asked by you all and the county to do. I believe there was another question at the back, maybe not. Okay. So in telling the story, this is done in many ways. It's done by a small group conversation. It's done by taking oral history interviews of some of the folks who have maybe a direct history with this building, maybe have lived here all of their lives, maybe have attended church here all of their lives. The folks who have the deepest and longest knowledge and broadest knowledge of this community can really help us understand what has changed over time that maybe has diminished the quality of community and what can we do to help in our management plan recommendations to try and prevent that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I would like to ask on behalf of the people that can't hear that here of what's going on at the panel as well as in the community, speaking to you guys, because some of you can hear and then a lot of you can't. and then you respond to something that you don't kind of true to what it is. So it's kind of confusing. So I would like any and everybody that goes to the microphone, please speak clearly into the microphone. So everybody gets a participate understanding and no one's understanding.
Thank you for letting us know that. We will, I will repeat questions that come from the audience so that everyone can be aware of what's being asked. There was a question about, you know, what about the things that are gone? What about those buildings that were demolished in the 1960s? What about the trailways or the trees or the forests that had been lost? That part of the community story, in addition to being understood through conversations with the community, would also be developed through traditional research and context development. That includes going back into historical records. I know you all have a great resource here in the museum. There is a rich amount of documentation about this community, and we need to really dive into that and understand it. If there are sources and pieces of information that you all have in your homes that you think would be helpful for us to understand, when we're in these community meetings, we can certainly arrange to scan or take photographs, or in other ways record that additional information as well. The question is, what are we speaking of developing? So we are taking all of these individual steps to build what is called, what has been referred to in our contract as a management plan, which is a set of recommendations to help the community clearly articulate what is important culturally, historically. What do you want to protect? What parts of the identity of this community are important to preserving its character? And then what tools can we put in place or recommend putting in place, more to the point, that will affect change and will help protect the character of the community? No, all of us have a background in historic preservation, architectural history. I'm sorry, the question was, are we proposing tearing down? Everyone on this team has a background in sociology, anthropology, history, architectural history. We all come at community projects through the lens of wanting to understand what is important culturally and historically to a community, and how can we support with our background and knowledge and understanding, how can we support protection and preservation of those things that are important that define your community. That's what we do for a living all day, every day, and that's what we hope to assist you all with in this project. Yes, ma'am.
I have a two-part question, and the first part is, I have a two-part question. The first part is, this study is supposed to identify a historic designation for the community, correct?
So it's a two-part question. The first question is, this project is supposed to identify a historic designation for the community. The answer is, we anticipate that we will recommend a historic designation, and we anticipate there will be other recommendations that we make. But until we have learned as much about this community and your vision, as you all know, I am not comfortable making any firm recommendations tonight. We know there will be recommendations, including a historic designation, but as to what that protects, that depends on what's important to you guys. And we need to understand that, and we need to have a collective vision about that.
Okay.
Second question.
The second part is really part of the first question. Which ones of these historic designations include regulation and oversight, and which ones are incentive driven?
So I think I'm going to answer that question. Question was, which of the designations are regulatory and which ones are incentive driven? I'm going to answer that briefly. because we're going to get to a little bit more content that will answer it more fully. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, there is one regulatory tool for historic properties, and that is through a zoning overlay district. For anyone who's taking notes, the enabling legislation by the General Assembly is in Chapter 15.2-2306. That is the only regulatory tool that is available that can be used to protect historic properties in Virginia, unless a private property owner were to donate an easement, which is a whole other thing, and it cannot be a community-wide activity. So that is the regulatory opportunity to manage change in a historic district, and that is done at the local level. It is done through a zoning overlay, and it involves creating design guidelines and clearly articulating the expectations for what is regulated under that type of an overlay district. Therefore, you have to have a very strong sense of what you're trying to protect if you want to implement an overlay district and be successful.
I just want to add something to what you're talking. The Commonwealth Preservation Group is doing a study. From the study will help to, from the study, that's going to help us to determine and add tools to our toolkit into what direction we can go in several different areas. A lot of the questions that we're asking at this time, in terms of what we're preserving, what we're not preserving, what may be eliminated, what we may be bringing forth in different areas, is not what they do. They are doing the study. What we do for this community is going to be based on the people in this room. It's going to be, we're not going to wait for people to tell us what's important and what's not. That's why we're here today. If we just want somebody to say, this is what we got, this is what you got, and you can have this, they got the wrong community. We're not for that. We need to listen to, after we can, let them complete their presentation. We have different people here that can answer some of these questions. Some of these questions are going to come up later. What you want to know, your questions are very important. We have about another half an hour. They want to finish their presentation. They are just doing the study. We're going to tell the story. We're going to say what's important. We're not going to leave that to other people. So if we can allow them to finish their presentation, we want to make sure that questions are directed to the right people, and we're going to try to get as many questions answered as we can. This is not the final meeting. We'll be doing this on a regular basis. We ask you on your pads, as this is going on, and they're finishing the presentation, jot your questions down on the pad. We want to be able, because these questions are important. We want to be able to put them on this white sheet in the middle of your table so that we can keep a record of the questions and we can get you the answers for it. So if we can allow them to finish their presentation, we'll have more time to ask questions, and we'll know how to address these situations for upcoming meetings. We're going to do this on a regular basis, but be ready to do what community means if everybody's working together. So what you want is important. What you think is of historic value needs to be addressed. They're working with us. They're working for us, but that's the extent of it. We have to determine how we move forward. So we can let them finish. We'll make sure that many of these questions can be addressed to the right people. You just want to make sure you get the right answers. Thank you.
So I had intended, thank you very much. I had intended for these slides to give you a glimpse into our work. And so I'm going to speed up a great deal, because that's really, these are the pieces that we're putting together so that we can understand what we're hearing from you all, and then we can translate it into a set of recommendations that reflects your vision. That's the goal. So next slide. This is probably the most important part of the conversations that you all will have as a community and that we will listen to. In order to move forward with any sort of recommendations, this community needs to come together and have enough common ground about the vision that you can collectively get behind the same set of goals. And that's a big piece of this project. Figuring out what those goals are and that common ground, in part, has to do with what is important to the community, what defines the character of the community, what needs to be saved in order to protect and preserve this community. And so all of the preceding work helps us be prepared to have constructive conversations with you all and understand what you're telling us. But establishing consensus is going to be a critical part of this project in order to move forward. Next slide. Oh, we went several ahead. Okay, go back one more. Once we've established a consensus, then we will try to translate what we hear from you all as a community about priorities. And we will try to communicate those in a way that is effective for the community and also is a tool for policymakers to use when they're working with the community. We will not set your priorities for you. You all will need to set your priorities, and we will work to translate those into actionable steps. Does that make sense? Okay. Next slide. This is where I think everyone wanted me to get from the beginning, but I felt like I needed to set the table a little bit to get here. So what are some of the potential outcomes? You know, we have been told we're supposed to develop a management plan. That feels jargony. What is a management plan? What does that mean? Well, what it means is identifying ways to achieve the goals that the community has for preservation of its heritage. And that can be done through many different ways. Depending upon what your priorities are, certain tools will be more effective than other tools. So once we understand the priorities, then we will work with the community to put together a set of recommendations. Acknowledgement and recognition is one category, and that's a part of telling the story, the entire story. The story is the community remembers it. The story is the community wants to present it. And I'm going to turn it over for a second to Ashley Spivey, who's going to talk a little bit about one of the specific ways that we can do that for this community through traditional cultural property. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Speaking clearly into the mic. Okay, good. Very quickly, we are talking about a toolkit, right, for a management plan for conservation, preservation of a community like Gum Springs. One of the potential options for that toolkit is what we call a traditional cultural property, also jargony. But really, we call it a TCP, that's what we call it. So if you hear TCP, we're referring to traditional cultural property. And what it is it's an opportunity for a space, a place, a district, a community, right? To be designated as a traditional cultural property on the National Register of Historic Places. So what does that mean? It allows for a living traditional community to be able to share its stories, its histories, its social institutions, its culture, and to document that as a part of the National Register process, right? It's getting at what we refer to as the intangible pieces or parts of a cultural or traditional heritage, right? It's the things that you can't see, that you can't touch, but are tied to the things that you see and you can touch, and that make a space, a place, a building, right, significant because of the stories, the histories, right, the practices, the art that are tied to them, right? So it's a way to just get at a deeper documentation of what is significant and priority for the community regarding history, culture, and how you all want to document that. I can go into more, but I know we're short on time. You will have the opportunity, I'm sure, to talk more about it, and I can answer any questions when we get to that point. Thank you, Ashley. So a couple of other categories of tools would be honorary designation, which would be recognition through designation on the state or the National Register of Historic Places, recognition for the history, recognition for the stories, and recognition for the remaining physical built environment. And then there are regulatory designations that are also a toolkit. I know that there are many members of this community who are really very interested in having a local overlay district to help manage the density, the scale, the speed at which change occurs within the neighborhood. That is a very effective tool, but you have to be clear as a community about what outcomes you want. Do you want a local historic district that is so strict that you have to get permission to change the color of your front door? Many would say no. Some might say yes. That is a form of a local overlay district. But there are also ways that you can write a local overlay district to just address scale, massing, density, kind of the visual characteristics of what's going on in the community. That would be less specific and less prescriptive to individual changes on individual properties when it comes to maintenance. And so we need to understand the vision of the community in order to even recommend a local overlay district, because we need to understand what you want to get out of that designation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Next slide. So anyone in the room who's very tech savvy, there's this new app or website called Menti. You can take a picture of that QR code and up is going to pop a survey and you can answer this question. What do you need to know from this community to be successful in moving forward to the next step? If you are not tech savvy, like myself, please answer that question on the sticky notes that are in front of you and place the sticky note on the white sheet of paper that's in the middle of your table. We are going to collect this and maintain a sort of an Excel spreadsheet of all the responses we get so that we can start off this project on a positive note, understanding what you all feel is important for us to take aboard. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to answer. So Laura also pointed out, if anyone would prefer to answer this online at home, you can, on your computer, you can type in menti.com and you can just put in that code and you'll be able to spend time typing on a computer to give us a longer answer, okay? Whichever way you communicate with us, your comments will be taken into the same spreadsheet and used in the same way to help guide our thinking as we move forward in the project. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to move on to a second question. Okay, we can flip the slide. Same process, okay? Same process for responding, but what ideas can you share with us to improve our work as we move forward with you all in this project? Those ideas can be the best way to communicate with you, names of people that we absolutely have to talk to, places that are of high importance that you want to make sure that we're aware of, concerns you have, experiences, things that are lost that we wouldn't necessarily stumble upon otherwise. This is a broad question on purpose because we need to hear all of the ideas from you all. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to respond. Got 30 more seconds. And again, feel free, this will remain open, so if you want to go home and think about it and come back to it tomorrow or the next day or whatever, that's fine too. All right, next slide. That takes us to the end. This is an email address. I apologize for the link. But this is an email address where you can send any thoughts or ideas throughout the project directly to our office. If we do not have the answer, we will make sure to get you a response from the appropriate party. We want to pause for questions and also just thank you for your time this evening.
But again, it's very important that you get all of your concerns, all your questions. If you start now putting them on your sticky note, we're going to try to get to as many as we can. We're going to try to get it to the appropriate person. I did have a couple of quick announcements that I wanted to give out tonight while we have people here. One, which would be, we are coming up on the Gum Springs Day, and we also celebrate Juneteenth. And the theme for this year's Gum Springs Community Day is family reunion. And so we're asking everybody to get that word out, to come down and enjoy themselves. Is that what you Ms. Gray. Can you come up and give us some information on the community day? Ms. Graves is the president of the Gum Springs Community.
What's coming up? How will we get the responses to the questions? It's going to be on these sticky notes.
Well, we're going to try to get, you mean if the ones that we don't get to tonight?
No. Well, yeah, even the ones you don't get to tonight, how will we obtain a response?
Well, we'll keep the record of it.
What I would.
So we want all of the questions.
I'm going to yell until, so.
Yeah, we want the answers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I would recommend is we'll talk to the county. They have a website. And I think what we can do is maintain a spreadsheet that they periodically upload with the question and the response. And that will just be live on the website ongoing.
To that question, will this presentation also be available for us to see?
Yes, it will. Okay, it's back. Did everyone hear me? So I'm going to make a recommendation to the county. I'm totally speaking out of school, but I see thumbs up. We will create a spreadsheet of all the questions and the answers, and that will be posted on the county website, which is already exists for this project. And we will maintain that and continue adding questions and answers throughout for complete transparency. We will also, tonight's presentation and every other presentation we give will be posted on the website as well. And we ask that if you have any friends, family, neighbors, associates that were not able to come tonight, please ask them to go ahead and take a look at that in their free time. And please ask them to, be engaged in the project and communicate with us. The web address. There's a flyer on the table that has the project website. Yes, sir.
Also, is this recorded so people can see it?
It has been recorded. Will that be on the website as well? Yes. So the recording of this meeting will also be on the website.
This is the Graves, the president of the Gum Springs Community Advisory Council.
Good evening. Good evening. So good to see the beautiful faces this evening. How y'all doing? Beautiful faces. Beautiful faces. Here in Gum Springs. Those same faces, we're hoping that you all will be out here June 15th, Saturday, June 15th at 11 o'clock from 11 to 4, when we celebrate Community Day in Gum Springs, as well as June 10th. This is going to be a family reunion, far and wide. So please call your family. I heard how so many people here over 30, 20, 30 years. I know my family, we've been over here 40 years. So please contact your family and say, come on to the family reunion. Because we're going to have a nice time here at Martin Luther King Park, June 15th, Saturday at 11 o'clock. We're going to have the train, the trackless train, the moon bounce for those that want to jump in the moon bounce. We're going to have games. It's going to be a family reunion. And we hope to, again, to celebrate Gum Springs because we are so blessed to be in Gum Springs. So please come June 15th. Thank you.
So we're ready for the question and answer period. Any other announcements that somebody wants to make at this point? You don't need no mic. You just. First of all, I want to thank the Civic Association for this. This is a very important development. I want to thank each and every one of you because this is something that we needed for a long time. And I think we should all be in great gratitude for the work that we've done, first of all. Second, Juneteenth is a very important holiday. It's a new one, but it's very important. And I'm proud to say that we will continue the celebration at Woodlawn Faith United Methodist Church on the 23rd of June. Not only will we have presentations explaining the holiday, we'll have soul-stirring music celebrating the holiday. And you ready for this, folks? We're going to have food. So you're all welcome. That's June 23rd at 1 o'clock. And we're going to be on the shirt at 70 in Harrison. Any other real quick announcement? Okay.
Hey, Denise Dressel, Heritage Resources Branch Chief. I just wanted to let you know that the link to the study, to our webpage, is found on the Spanish flyer, but it was cut off the English flyer. So if you're looking for the link, it's on the Spanish flyer. Sorry about that, folks.
Okay, and we have along with members of the county staff and the community groups here, we have did extensive work in trying to get this information out. To make sure that this information reaches every household in the 214 acres of Gum Springs and surrounding areas. Keep these numbers in mind. 214. That's the original 214 acres of Gum Springs. And our idea and our job is to protect every blade of grass up. And so get this information, keep those numbers in your head of the 214, and let's get some of these questions answered so that, because a lot of the questions that you all are answering, everybody needs to give an answer to. So by the raise of hands, and then somebody will bring a mic to you. If you can put if you can already have that on the your sticky pad, then we can make sure that that's transferred to the team so we can continue to work on those items. Any questions? Okay.
I have two questions. One, I've been wondering since we've been talking about this. Right? Is that all right? Yeah. So I've been wondering about the inventory and the research on the objects and buildings and things that exist now and things that exist before. And it's an assumption that all the great stories from concepts can be tied to a physical thing, which may be the case, I don't know. But I think Gum Springs is really, well, basic special and important is the stories, the resilience of the people and how they pull together and how they survive all this time in such a hostile environment. And whether everything is tied to a physical thing, because they didn't build magnificent buildings, they were too busy surviving and forming a community. So I wonder about that. How can we tell stories that might not have a physical presence anymore? And the other thing is how are you incorporating the historical context of the area around us? There's so much of it, the whole nation. And it's all related to the Civil War and the aftermath of that, and the return and the fall in the neighborhood. And Quakers were pretty good friends. So I just saw a link today on the new research that's been done on major prominence in the area, and I see the neighborhood is north of Sherwood Hall there, and the boundaries of Spring has a really awful stuff in the city of Colorado. They went way beyond any of the other neighborhoods. So I wonder what that story was about. So, yeah, I'm wondering what about the things going on around them and how's that going to be?
Well, actually really glad you asked that question. One of the reasons that we've come so long down the road in trying to get this survey done is we are fortunate enough to have a historic society that is on top of these things. And I want to stay in my lane, but Mr. Chase, you can explain to them about the anthropologists and sociologists that will request to be part of this study so that we could address just what you were saying. A lot of things, well, I'll let him.
Well, as was stated, we do have the anthropologists and the sociologists that's here today. And it's extremely important that they be a part of this because those two elements are the main two elements that will ensure that Gum Springs get its historical overlay district. Because the sociologist is going to maintain the history, the music, the religion, the everyday functionality of the community. What enabled this community to thrive? What enabled it to survive? All of these little aspects the sociologists will look at. Because we lived in a world, African Americans lived in a world where you were chattel. And this community came into existence and stayed in existence to present day. How did that happen? All of these things will come into play with the sociologists and then the anthropologists, looking at the evolution of man in this society. Important stuff. This is who we are. This is how we survive. Amazing if you stop and think and ponder the treasure of Gum Springs. So once again, the overlay is going to look at everything, what was here then and what's here now. These important elements. The Booker T. Washington, George Washington, Booker T. Washington School. There was a school, not a school, but a house on Holland Road that predated the Civil War. And unfortunately, we lost it when they built the cul-de-sac on Holland Court. It was right there. Predated the Civil War, still standing. However, we are going to still look at that. That will still be a part of the historic overlay. These are important elements that we cannot let slip through our fingers. So, does that answer your question? Please.
I had two questions.
Is that for me or Vincent?
No.
Or for the
no, the supervisor store, the first person. And that is, $60,000 was provided to initiate this study. Now, where will the funds come from, and how much will it cost once those $60,000 has been extended?
$60,000 was the initial amount that the Board of Supervisors appropriated. We had some additional money, and I'm going to turn this over to Carla, because, and you may, I don't know if you know the number either, but I don't know the exact number of what it is, but we've been assured, and I've had those conversations internally, not only with my colleagues, but with the county executive, that this study is fully funded and we're moving it forward. What the next steps are after that, I think we've all been hearing. This is a process that we're just entering into, looking at about a year from now to get a sense of where we are. And then from there, obviously there'll be a lot of other issues that we're going to look at, funding that may be necessary to move it forward. But that's the best I can give you at the moment.
Yeah, I think Denise can give you the specific dollar amount, but I think the point to be made is that the cost of the study that has been described to you is fully covered, right? The county has committed beyond what was initially allocated in order to ensure that all aspects of the study could be included. It didn't initially include a sociologist was added. It didn't initially include an anthropologist was added. And so those additional components are all covered. And so what you heard described today is already fully supported, but the exact amount, I think Denise can give us.
So, sorry, the Department of Planning and Development picked up the rest of the study, the cost of the study. So Supervisor Stork and the Board of Supervisors did appropriate $60,000 originally, and then the Department of Planning and Development from out of our funds picked up the rest of the study.
You gonna get on mic?
It was included in a previous budget from DPD's funding, our department's funding.
So what's the total cost of the study now? The 60 plus DPD?
About 193.
Okay, about 200 back.
Yes, under 200.
Okay. Now my second question is, how will this study reach out to the West Ford descendants? Because without the West Ford descendants, or without West Ford, there would be no Gum Springs. So how are we going to reach out to the descendants, West Ford descendants?
Well, let me say this. This study is going to look at everybody, everything, every element possible. In terms of the West Ford thing, this community, although we have a lot more than we could do in recognizing the contributions of West Ford, there is a lot of West Ford stuff here as well. And we have to continue. We have to continue all of the people that made this community what it is. And and this is a little bit off subject, but we had a gentleman that did work in this community, in this county for years. Calvin L. Ferguson, there's not a building around here with his name on it. And it's a shame that we on the Route 1 corner of Fairfax County, we don't have a building anywhere with Calvin Ferguson's name on it. Most of the programs and activities you see throughout the county, state, and things like that were part of the Strongsville Community Action Association. Mr. Moon there, that was his father, who was a principal of the school. So we have plenty that we need to bring out. And Westport, we want to continue that work on things in terms of Westport. The Westport complexes up here on Fortune Road and Sherwood Orlane is a major topic. It's a major topic. So we have to make sure that, because people donated their land so that we were able to build those places like that. So we're not leaving anybody out. And any suggestions you have on it, feel free, we want you to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it because the Westport family, they have an official family column, and plus the fact that individual can identify where Westport divided up his land to his children, that where they lived, and lots of information. So,
it's valuable information.
Right. So it's not just about Gum Springs, it's how Westport came into being and how he created Gum Springs. Like I said, without Westport, there would be no Gum Springs.
Next question. We got about 5 minutes.
Am I next?
Well, hold on, before you do that, we had a Zoom question.
It was okay. That was actually the question.
Just wanted to emphasize in regards to Ms. Clark's reference. Of course, there would be no Gum Springs without Westport. And he purchased the land and in 1863, a few months before he passed, he got with one of the surveying Quakers that was in the area, and he divided that land into 4 sections for his 4 children. And we have that information. And so what we do not want to forget that effort, and that's why I brought up the New Yorker magazine and how they misrepresented him. But we surely do not want to forget Samuel K. Taylor, a runaway slave who came here to Gum Springs and started Bethlehem Baptist Church, and the wonder of that. We do not want to forget the Joint Stock Club. We do not want to forget Loveless Brown. We do not want, I could go on and on, these people that created this community. We want to remember them. And we do not, I'm in discussion now with some of the Ford descendants, and they're in favor of some things that would destroy Gum Springs. And I have some concerns with them in that regard, that they would be for something that would destroy Gum Springs just because a developer offered to build a statue. Now that statue would still be here, but Gum Springs would be gone. So I have problems with that. And I try to let them understand they're coming here with their input, but was not here for the saving and the continuation of this community. And that requires a discussion that I want to keep going with them, that they recognize truly the people who continue what their ancestors started, because it was truly a phenomenal thing.
Now, also, before you leave, and we're getting ready to close shortly, we'll take a couple more questions, then we're gonna close. We do have in the back, you can register for the Civic Association and the Historic Society at the 2 tables in the back. If you see them raise your hands again. Okay. Over here.
I think y'all can hear me, I'm not gonna stand. But my name is Nan Colbert. I did go to elementary school here at Hugh Smith, which was named after Dr. Drew and his nurse. But my question is, how will all of this redistricting and historical labeling affect property taxes? Will it drive people who live here a long time out of the area because of that? I'm looking futuristically and not just, you know, just that today, because there's just so many things that all of this encompasses. And I heard the simplification and people being moved out and communities being disintegrated because of money.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that point. If you first of all, Gulf Springs now is a very diverse community, but we have to make diversity abstract. We have to be inclusive in all things that we do. The things like property values and stuff, and if you know, they up there anyway. And some of the things that we are very interested in doing is making sure that we have affordable property that people can buy and build homes on here in the community that they've helped and lived in and been part of all their life. We have another responsibility as one of the older Black communities in not just the county, but the state. A lot of people look at us because we have resources. We have people that's out working. We have structure. We have a lot. And we have a lot of people in this building today that work their tail off every day to help look out for this community. You might not see them all the time, but if you start coming to some of the meetings, and if you can't come to the meetings, go online. If you can't go do that, go on Facebook. If you can't get to it, call somebody, but do something for your community. Believe me, you'll feel better. That's how we're going to change these things. I'll take one more question.
This is a question. This is our last announcement. My name is Anita. My dad is Richard Carter. He is the president of the Gulf Springs Civic Association. So I just wanted to announce to everyone here, we did launch a website. So if you go to newgsca.org, GSCA for Gulf Springs Civic Association, that is a website where you can find information about the association. You can sign up for membership. You can pay for membership. And I will also link the information from tonight to their website. I will also put that on the website. If you cannot, I also leave the web address with the front desk. If you cannot remember the email address, if you remember the number 53555, everybody say 53555. If you text your one screen to 53555, you get a link. It's going to take you to a donation page where you can make a donation, but you can also be on the website. So if you access the website, you can make donations to the anything, you can find out more information. But again, you text the word Gulf Springs 53555, you will get a link for more information, or you can just go to the website, which is newgsca.org, and I will make sure this information is on that website.
Okay. One more quick thing. Somebody lost the phone. And it's up here. It's done.
Real quick question. You mentioned other people's names not being credited. Also, this team that was called Drew Smith, Sandra B. Williams. Can you get that back on front? Yeah. My mom told you it was a blessing.
Can we get that on the day when June fifth? Can you get that somewhere in this building along with the other end of people? If we're gonna preserve it. Oh, yeah. I'm asking the board, can that happen? You want to preserve this, can we get those names back on the building? Because that's what was, before the started, that would be for the people on this side. Can we get the names back?
But that's the kind of input, we need.
Thank you.
Okay. Listen. We want you to be able to come back next time at a reasonable time. We're not going to keep you here all day. We're going to go through the things on the agenda. If you have things that need to be put on the agenda for the upcoming meeting, we want to be able to do that. And I want to thank everybody for coming. Because this is where it all starts. This is where it all starts. And we want to be an active community instead of reactive community. And that's how we get this started. There are some refreshments and things there. Make sure you get something before you leave, and nobody want to take it home. And at least stop by the desk up there and inquire about joining the Gum Springs Civic Association, because when we have issues that come up, you have to live in Gum Springs, and you have to have membership with the Gum Springs Civic Association to vote in the Civic Association meeting. Everybody's welcome. We don't have any restrictions other than the fact that you physically live in the geographical confines of Gum Springs in the 214 acres. And everybody drive safely. We're still here for you. If you have questions, you want to come and ask some people here. We're going to hang around for a little while. But come back next time. We've got plenty of notices. We got bus transportation, child care. We got all kinds of stuff to do. And if we find out some other reason why we might not get to people, let us know and we see if we can rectify that. Thank you so much for your time.